Hey guys, we're back. Kilian Laverty is joining us this week. We're going to talk about price controls, midterms, all kinds of stuff. Kilian, Build Back Better might be back. It's a skinny version of the bill, if you could call it that, and there's price controls in it. What are price controls again?
Yeah, so price controls is when you artificially fix the price of something. So you have price floors or price ceilings where you can't sell something below a certain price or above it. The idea is, let's look at housing or medicine. In this case, it's medicine. But when you set an artificial price that's lower than the market equilibrium, you're shifting the quantity supplied back to match the price. So you honestly create a shortage between the difference between supply and demand here. So price controls don't work. They've never worked, whether it be in wages, housing, or medicine. We see foreign countries that have implemented these socialist policies, and it's done nothing but harm the very patients that they're meant to protect. These policies have been tried time and time again, and honestly, they've never worked, and they do more harm than good, whether it be creating shortages, wait times, they stifle innovation, just all around bad policies that misunderstand, they don't understand basic market economics.
Sure. And so it's kind of shifting the U.S. towards a more maybe like a lot of countries in Europe have their kind of healthcare system there, where proponents of this say, okay, it's great, things will be cheaper, everyone will have access to something, but there's side effects of that. What we're seeing, like there'll be shortages of drugs, worse care overall. You end up paying for these things somehow, if not just in the dollar amount. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. Price isn't just some arbitrary number. There are market forces that go in to determine what the actual price of something should be set at. And it's not all just overhead of how much does it cost to produce a drug. There are also like R&D costs for that drug itself and future drugs to try and get the capital there.
Sure, because you want to invest to create new life-saving cures. But if you can only sell it for a certain amount, you can't really make your money back to go and invest in a new one to keep moving forward for that.
Yeah. Honestly, the cost that Americans would be paying for price controls here is less medicine and less access to that medicine.
Yeah, and maybe a new, like, you can't predict what's going to be in the future. You can't predict what the next, breakthrough cure is going to be. And this is kind of, putting a damper on that. We won't be able to innovate, and, we won't have the capacity to do that if we're going to put price controls on all these prescription drugs.
Absolutely. And, some of the hardest hit drugs by these policies, by like Medicare price negotiation or inflation penalties for pharmaceutical companies, some of the hardest hit products are generics and biosimilars, which end up being the
store brand version of whatever the drug is, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So these are the products that drive down the price of medicine. So you're disproportionately harming the very products that you should be encouraging. You're putting in place barriers to them. Because in large case, if you look at something like an inflation penalty, a drug that costs, say, $5, if it goes up 50 cents for whatever reason, that's a larger portion, a larger percentage than if a $50 drug went up 50 cents.
Sure.
So what we're doing, or what these kind of policies do, is they disproportionately harm the very products that drive down the cost of medicine, and they hurt the Americans that they're meant to protect. It's an all-around bad idea. It makes you feel like you're doing something, but in reality, you're just doing more harm than good.
Just like what, everything we see every day in DC. Oh, we're doing something, but not always something good. Let's move on here. Is Biden actually going to run for re-election? You saw that Siena College poll that we were talking about. We saw it in the New York Post the other day, where it's like 94% or 92? Of
94%.
94% of Democrats under the age of 30 don't want Joe Biden to run for re-election.
I mean, it's no shocker. You look around, and gas, depending on where you're at, could be $7-8 a gallon in some places in this country. It's wild.
Yeah.
And the White House, in this totally tone-deaf manner, will insist that somehow this is the strongest economy that we've ever seen, or that America has ever seen. It's absolutely tone deaf and ridiculous.
Hey,
anyone living
bring
in
back
the United
2019
States right now. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
it's brutal. I mean, we had the strongest economy in my lifetime, in many people's lifetime, in 2018, 2019. And thanks to disastrous lockdown policies, supply chain disruptions, rapid inflation because we've pumped trillions of dollars into the money supply, and Biden's war on domestic energy. We're seeing absolutely unlivable conditions in some places of the country. Right, it's insane. I mean, we just saw record-breaking 40-year high inflation numbers this week, primarily driven by energy costs. Yes, the CPI is 9.1%, but if you look at just energy,
inflation,
CPI is in Consumer Price Index, how much something costs compared to last year. If you look at energy, it's not a 9.1, it's a 40% increase in inflation. It's wild.
And you got to think, though, that number, 94% of Democrats under 30, those typically tend to be more liberal Democrats, younger people.
Yeah.
It's also because they don't think that Biden's actually delivered on anything. I mean, is this just a question of, do they understand how things actually work? It's like, you control the presidency, but you only have, a slim majority in the Senate. So you're not actually moving anything through there.
Well, why do you think they're restarting reconciliation here? They're trying to have some win. I mean, the only win they have policy-wise is the American Rescue Plan, which ended up stoking the fires of inflation with an extra $2 trillion into the economy. Even their supposed win ended up being an absolute disaster for them.
Yeah,
and they're scraping for anything.
Yeah, what about how Biden will come out these days and say, "Oh, we're actually decreasing the deficit"? It's like, yep, okay, true, but it's only moving down a small percentage, and you wanted to pass Build Back Better, which would have increased it even more. So it's like the most disingenuous thing to say. You didn't want to actually decrease the deficit. You lost, and you're trying to claim victory over something that's not even really a win here.
Absolutely. If this administration had their way, if they had a super majority in the Senate right now, we would have passed trillions and trillions of dollars more in spending. Look at the original Build Back Better.
We wouldn't be talking about the deficit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the original Build Back Better package, it was $6 trillion written by Bernie Sanders. This is a Sanders administration, or at least they'd like to be.
Or
but they've
Warren
been
or something. Yeah.
Or Warren, Sanders, Warren, that whole contingent, the AOCs of the world. But they haven't been able to cobble together the votes they have. So they have an unpopular uber left-wing agenda, but they also are inept. So you're pissing off the vast majority of Americans who are watching the price of living, the cost of living rapidly increase, while at the same time you're ticking off progressive young people who want to see Bernie Sanders type socialism implemented into the United States full scale, and they haven't been able to push that through. It's been the worst of both worlds.
Yeah.
There's no wonder why no one wants to see Biden run for re-election here.
I know. And I mean, I think that brings up the idea of consensus. You have a lot of, people on the left who want these, pie in the sky, all these crazy ideas. They want to push these things through, and then they complain when they can't do it. It's like, because you're not even trying to meet anyone halfway. They can't actually build a consensus to, go forward with these things. And I'll just plug our book we've actually released recently. Our president Adam Brandon co-authored America in Perspective with business leader David Sokol. This is a great book. Check it out. We'll put the link in the description here. America in Perspective: Saving the American Dream. They talk about this in the book, about how you have parts of of the left who cannot actually reach a consensus on anything, even though our entire system of government is based around compromise and consensus. And then they flip out when they can't get what they want, and they say that we're the bad guy. What do you think about that? I mean,
well, if you look at it, they despise the current form of government we have, the form of government we've always had. Though we are a republic, not a democracy, and because which
was Adam's last book too.
Exactly. And because there's a situation where they're not able to get what they want through the Senate because of whatever reason, whether it's Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, whatever, they can't get what they want through the Senate. They can, even with a slim majority, they've been successful in the House. Well, that must mean there's something broken in the Senate and we have to fix it. Yeah. There's something we've gotten loss after loss in the Supreme Court. Well, that means that there's somting wrong with the court. And
it's illegitimate.
Illegitimate. We have to pack it. We have to remove justices. It is a mindset where when you don't get your way, it's a problem with the institution, not the idea. And it's funny, a disdain for American tradition.
Yeah, exactly. You see the same crowd who's complaining about, I think wrongly so most of the time, with about Trump upending, democratic norms or something like that. But now they're the same people out there saying that, we got to change absolutely everything so that we can advance our agenda.
Yeah, no, they want their agenda. The agenda takes precedent over everything with this crowd. And as you've seen, as Biden has been unable, inept at actually implementing what they want, because he's a doddering old man who reads off the teleprompter.
Mm-hmm.
End of quote. Repeat the line.
Repeat the line. Did you see what they did with that? They went back and edited the White House transcript to make it look like he didn't do that, and people were taking screenshots of it and saying, like, we have this on video. He did not say that. You're trying. They came out and said he said something completely different, like literal 1984 kind of stuff going on here. I mean, I usually don't like to use that that analogy there, but they're going back and editing this kind of stuff.
No, it's the gaslighting of America.
Yep.
It's the same logic that allows them to say this is the strongest economy we've ever seen.
Sure.
This is an inept administration with unpopular policies, and they're seemingly unable to accept that. So they will double down, and lie to Americans rather than actually take responsibility, take culpability, and try and get our fiscal house in order and reduce inflation and the pain that Americans are feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And you can't do, this is what you get when you elect an old, feeble, weak man to the White House. We've seen it play out for 2 years now. I'd be embarrassed if I voted for Joe Biden if I was on the fence there. But moving on, let's. We talked about Joe Biden possibly running. We're still wondering if Trump's going to run again.
Sure.
Multiple people have thrown their hat already, or semi done that for the Democrat or the Republican primary, but. I mean, the kind of read I'm getting here is, is he going to run? I think it really depends on what happens in this midterm, in the 2022 midterms, if Trump's going to run. I think he wants to come into Washington with, or come back to Washington with, a Republican Senate and House. House seems pretty likely. What do you think about the Senate?
Yeah, I think that the House, unless the Republicans do something incredibly idiotic, I think that they've got the House pretty safe under lock and key. On the Senate, I mean, that's a much tougher battle. I think Republicans have the edge here, but with the four or five states that are really in play, one's a GOP state in Pennsylvania with retiring Senator Pat Toomey. So you got Oz versus Fetterman there. The other three in Nevada, Georgia, and Arizona are Dem current seats. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the GOP has a good shot at retaking the Senate. Slim majority, maybe a 51, 52 seat.
Something like
that. But it's going to be razor thin. I mean, it looks like the field is settling. We'll see what the Arizona primary results are. But with Walker, Laxalt, and Oz, we're running against actual socialists like John Fetterman.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, with Laxalt, I'm pretty certain about Laxalt cleaning up in Nevada there. I think that Cortez Masto has some it's either name recognition is super low for her, or it's some of her what do you call it, the some of her negatives are just pretty high there. I'm calling that for Laxalt now. We'll see how that plays out. What are you thinking about some of these other seats?
Yeah, crystal ball. I mean, I think we get the majority. I think we win the majority of these states here. But in Pennsylvania, again, that's the real one we need to hold. Everything else is a gain. Pennsylvania is the battleground between Oz and Fetterman. It looks like they're neck and neck, and you've got very different candidates on both ends of the ticket, because there's also a governor's race going on in Pennsylvania with Doug Mastriano versus Josh Shapiro. And
yeah, there'll be some fireworks in that one.
Yeah, Mastriano and Oz are very different candidates, so we'll see if there's any splitting between the two. But those are the real stakes. If Oz doesn't win, if the GOP loses that seat, the map becomes a whole lot harder. The road becomes a whole lot harder to get the majority back.
Sure.
And John Fetterman is a socialist in the same cut as Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. Sanders has actively campaigned for him. He's actively campaigned for Sanders during presidential cycles. It's gonna be interesting to watch.
Sure. You hear from our resident Pennsylvanian, Kilian. Thanks for coming on.